Hello, this is Robert Ellis from DSP Plug, just walking home because I'm a bit of an environmentalist. People might be asking themselves, society control, what's that all about? Why? Society control is not some weird experiment. It's not designed to make things pervasive and strange. In fact, with the right controls in place, a lot of the potentially very good things that we possess can be even better. We might look back and think about history, and we realize war has driven much of our society forward and sometimes backwards. When we think about breeding, when we think about things like religion, what seems like a very good thing can also be a form of assimilation. And assimilation usually means lives lost. Forcible assimilation, examples of that could be people from the past or even in the present who breed too often. Maybe they feel that their people are better, or they just want to survive. Maybe they feel that there's some unwinnable climactic clash of ideologies, and they're not certain if many of their children will survive that. And that's what has been. So, how can digital signal processing and society control help to move us forward? China, as you may well know, puts a limit on children, and they taxate should you have more than two. And some people have questioned this and the ethical nature of it, but ultimately, if you're part of a society that is controlled, and I mean controlled in the way that evil and crime is not so pervasive, then it's in fact survivable. It's not always fair, it's not always kind, but it's nice to know, for instance, that if you only had one or two children, that your one or two children could survive. And that is what potentially, theoretically, the controls could accomplish. Jealousy, greed, violence, things that have always been part of society. And yet, what if, let's say, a digital signal processing satellite could see, or sensors could see, everyone who's having sex? What would that mean? AI subroutines could see if people were having sex, and then a little app would notify them on their phone. It would say, "You're about to have a child. Do you wish to proceed?" And if you pressed yes, the woman would become pregnant. And the reason why is a tiny little zap upon the uterus of the woman's uterus from a satellite that could quite easily control birth. And as soon as you press that button, you were making a choice. You were choosing to spend your own money on your own child. How much further could it go? Certainly, it could go a lot further too. It could also prevent things like racism. When we think about racism, we think about people who don't necessarily like the fact that somebody looks different than them. Well, where does that stem from? If we were to look back in history, often it stems from forced assimilation and from a man becoming a cockle. Though there's a stigma to the word, yes. Um, and when you think about it, it causes enmity and hatred. And if that were removed from society, racism would also diminish. Though I certainly wouldn't want to label any country or demographic area and say that they're pervasively racist. But one of the most prolific clashes of ideologies and races could certainly be considered Sudan. And in Sudan, there was this ideology that brown people were trying to outbreed black people. And the black people said that they wished to remain themselves. They were suggesting that they didn't wish to be brown. And there was a huge clash, and it ended up being in media, and it was a very frightening, sad thing. Well, imagine what society control could do for that. It would be impossible to make another man a cuckold. It would be impossible to make another woman a cuckold. And we could finally be at peace. In the way of religion, religion often does aspire to great and wonderful things. Unfortunately, during times of war, religion used to be something that governed over people as a government might. And like any government, there were certain choices to be made, certain hard choices. And those certain hard choices were means of warfare and sometimes means of survival. Imagine just how beautiful so many religions could be if people could once again meet in peace, fraternize, socialize in peace. It's a wonderful era. Awesome. Roberts from the Music Flood.